All right, so we're gonna break down a little bit of our thoughts on the team Chase versus team Sewell kind of battle going on in Cincinnati. I think Drew is gonna be presenting his thoughts on why the pick should be Penei Sewell for number 5 overall for the Cincinnati Bengals in the 2021 NFL Draft, and then Josh is going to hit on the team Chase stuff because we all know that Josh loves Jamar Chase, right?
Yep.
Let's do
All
it.
right. So I am Team Sewell. And there's one major reason why I'm Team Sewell. And against the Washington football team, Joe Burrow got his knee absolutely destroyed. There were
Yeah.
so many torn tendons that I don't even remember them all. So, he was sacked 32 times in like the 10 or 11 games he played. Brandon Allen got sacked 7 times, and Ryan Finley got sacked 9 times. So that totals up to like around 48 sacks in total, which is super high. And especially if you have a young quarterback who you want to develop, that is just not going to work for your team. And
Yeah,
when it
but,
comes to
but what about all the stuff about the other tackles in the draft? I'm team Cosme. That guy is like an elite athlete from Texas.
well, everybody in this draft is an elite athlete. They're in the NFL draft, but I don't think looking at the film, I don't think we've really seen like a lot of people like Sewell. We've seen, fast receivers. We've seen strong receivers. We've seen all that stuff, and there's usually a few in each draft that you can find late.
Okay,
Tyreek
here's
Hill was a Tyreek Hill was a fourth round pick, and he's like the fastest guy in the league.
yeah.
So you hitting on an offensive lineman is a lot more difficult, in my opinion, than hitting on a wide receiver. Uh, so when you look at the
I
we had close to 4,000 passing yards as a team. And if you take away AJ Green and John Ross, it doesn't really make much of a change in there. It's like a 600 yards or something like that. And so you'll get your free agents, you'll get your trades, you'll get your draft picks that'll replace that. What you can't replace is a franchise tackle. So that's why I'm Team Sewell.
but we already have a tackle. I don't know.
You have Jonah Williams, who's
Yeah,
gotten hurt both seasons that he's played,
yeah. Well,
and we
is
have
there
Riley Reef.
is there somebody that we could draft to block? Do we need to get like a really good blocking tight end so that Jonah Williams doesn't get hurt again?
Now,
Uh,
now I get, because trust me, like whenever Joe Burrow got hurt, like I remember the moment it happened. Like I think everyone at that moment knew, like we're gonna go offensive line, like that. That's a fact. So like it makes sense to me. But like I guess where I get stuck when it comes to or I guess when I did research into the draft, that I feel like the best value, especially in this draft, especially with I feel like people I would just say I guess overvaluing the quarterback, and that the fact that we have potential either 3 or 4 quarterbacks going out either in the top 3 or 4 picks, that we might actually get the best overall player in the draft. Now, that could be the offensive lineman, but I think for the Bengals, we could actually either hit either for like a playmaker wide receiver or even a tight end. But I guess my gut is telling me that we're probably going to go for the receiver, because I think where the value in the draft is that you get potentially that once in a lifetime generation playmaker, and then still get a really good starting guard either in the second or third round. It seems like where the most value is in this draft for the Bengals.
Hmm.
Well,
see, I just think about it as like the franchise tag, right? Gives you kind of an idea of like what position costs, right? And like I feel like receivers cost more than offensive linemen.
yeah,
So,
that's.
so offensive line, the franchise tag for offensive line is 14 million a year. Wide receiver is 17 million a year, so I guess it's not that big of a difference.
It's only gonna go up for receivers though, because receivers are such a hot market right now.
Yeah,
Like, you want your quarterback with a cannon arm to be able to throw downfield to like his three receivers that can run 4 threes, and you overpay for that. So, and it's like a risk you have to take sometimes. That
yeah,
it kind of stacks the franchise tag,
but
And with
like
the offensive linemen, it's like I feel like they're just a lot rarer. I think quality receivers are a dime a dozen basically these days.
yeah, I don't,
And quality tackles are not, because when you're a kid, you're in like middle school, nobody wants to play tackle. Like that's not the glamour position that nobody's saying,
Okay,
I
Drew.
want to play
Let me
be
ask
the
you
starting
this.
tackle, at
Let
least
me
in my experience.
let me
I,
ask you
I,
this.
I
Who
played
do,
tackle in middle school. What are you trying to say?
hold on.
I played tackle too.
Let me ask you this. Who do you think is the best receiver ever? Like if you had to pick
Ever?
one person.
Jerry Rice, no doubt.
Jerry Rice, okay. And then who do you think is the best left tackle ever?
Munoz.
Anthony Munoz.
Okay. If you were in a draft and you were a head coach or a GM, who would you pick? If you had to pick one person between I'm sorry, you said Jerry Rice versus
Munoz and Rice.
who would you pick if you were the GM or head coach?
So, like, there's nobody on the team at this point.
Yeah,
right?
you're like
Starting
who
from
would you
scratch,
value more? That's basically what we're asking. Would you value Jerry Rice more than Munoz, or Munoz versus Jerry Rice? Who would you pick?
Well, how about you change the hypothetical a little bit? Say you're not starting from scratch. Say you have Joe Burrow, right? But you could get either of those two players to pair
Okay,
with.
well, yeah, just pretend you have Joe Burrow. That's fine.
Okay.
That you can.
So, we've got the quarterback, and I have to choose between a tackle and a receiver.
I mean, because that's kind of what we're looking at right here. We're looking at
Jerry
it like a once in a
Rice-
lifetime left tackle, or we're looking at a once in a
Right.
lifetime receiver, right? So it's like because the way I look at it is if Jamar Chase would have declared, if he was eligible for the draft last year, he would have been the first receiver taken off the board, and no one would have questioned that. That's how good he was, and he was only 20 years old. He was torching first round cornerbacks as a 20-year-old or even a 19-year-old.
Yeah. But
Like he's like
strip away all the layers of complexity, and it's just Jerry Rice versus Munoz, and you don't have all this other stuff with like team needs and stuff. I think I would probably take Rice because I think Rice is the greatest football player of all time. He's indisputably the best at his position. There's no fights about it like you get with quarterbacks and stuff.
Right. Well,
Like-
would you take Jerry, or let's pretend it's not even Jerry Rice, right? Let's just keep Anthony Munoz. Let's just pretend it's what if it's Randy Moss? What if it was just a top 5 receiver of all time? That could
Randy
potentially
Moss?
be Jamar Chase. Like if you really look at this guy and what he has accomplished and like his ability, like he could potentially measurables. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but he's got that talent. Like, would you really pass up on that?
I mean, I would probably take, if it's not Jerry Rice, I would probably take Munoz, because how good as a receiver if you don't have a good quarterback to throw to him? And receivers are interesting in that way, because John Ross, right? No, I'm not saying it's because he hasn't had a good quarterback to throw to him. Like, the man can't catch, but if he could catch, he still needs a quarterback who can get the ball to him. He's basically he's fast. Measurable wise, he's faster than Tyreek. So it's all about, keeping your quarterback healthy for a passing offense. And I think Munoz, people forget how like influential a left tackle can be. Like, Joe Thomas retired in what, 17, 18, something like that. And people never hear anybody talking about Joe Thomas now. But people still talk about, Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck all the time. So, it's just there's a bit of bias amongst fans over the importance of positions. But that's why, I think Munoz is still the right choice, is because he was just so good that he wouldn't let up a sack at all.
That's funny. I would take Munoz over Rice, but I would still take Chase over Sewell, and then I would also take Kyle Pitts over Sewell.
I mean, if it was
I'd also
me,
take
if
Devontae Smith over Sewell.
I mean, if you're
yeah.
asking me, I'm probably going to take Pitts, but there's a good chance that Pitts is probably not going to be there if the Falcons don't trade. But I feel like the Falcons will end up trading, but I just feel like the Bengals' point of view, that they really value receivers more than tight ends when it comes down to it. And I think you can get a once-in-a-lifetime. Like, really, like the Bengals literally can't miss. They really can't mess this up. I mean, you get a once-in-a-lifetime tackle, a once-in-a-lifetime tight end, and a once-in-a-lifetime, receiver in terms of, measurables, right? So it's like you can't really miss. But, I mean, if you're just asking from, a GM perspective, and I kind of want to, bring this up, is that the Bengals, in terms of using 3 receiver sets, do probably they're definitely in top 5. They were great at second. 82% of their snaps they use 3 receivers. So it's like, could you imagine our offense if AJ Green was AJ Green? Like, he was just a shell of himself last year. I know, right? So you put Jamar Chase in that factor, and you say hey, can Jamar Chase probably replicate AJ Green's numbers? I think he can. I think he's proven that. And if he can replicate AJ's numbers, I mean, our offense, and don't get me wrong, and I'm not saying we shouldn't address the line. I just feel like the value for us is you get that once in a lifetime receiver in the first round, and then you get that offensive line that you're talking about in Texas in the second round, or we can actually potentially get another lineman drop into the second round because someone might potentially value a quarterback late in the first or something to that extent. So
or you trade up into the bottom of the first round. Right?
I think they could do that. I kind of see them doing that.
Another, I don't know what it takes to get back up into the first round. Another second and third, or maybe a fourth and a fifth. I could see you doing both, because there are so many offensive linemen in this draft. So that to me is the biggest driver, is positional value. Also, I don't trust the Bengals with developing an offensive lineman. I'd much rather them attack it with free agency and with second day and greater picks. I like the idea of them drafting a guard in the second round, filling out that offensive line this year. No, we don't have a right guard.
We don't?
We don't have a guard, no.
Isn't Xavier Su'a-Filo the right guard?
No, he's the left guard.
Oh.
And the right guard is, I think they re-signed Spain, but Spain.
Yeah, it's Quentin Spain. It's Quentin Spain.
He's upgradable. You can upgrade over him. So
definitely.
Yeah,
so I can see you go, you get whoever you think is the best receiver. I like Pitts, then Smith, then Chase. But if you go with any of those 3, I would take any of them over Sewell, and then Sewell would be my 4th pick. But I feel like the Bengals are primed to get a good receiver. Like what Josh was saying, I think that the offense will be more dangerous with an elite receiver to pair with our very good receivers with T. Higgins and Boyd, and then you have Uzama, and I just think they can do quite a bit.
I also feel like, and this is kudos to the Bengals, is that they're kind of playing down the connection with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Because they're saying that, because I seen some type of interview where they're saying like where Burrows is like, he's basically saying that he's not like,
He's not vying for either one.
Right.
Not
And I'm
lovely,
like,
but
I call the biggest BS because I feel like, because I was going through all this and like think about this, like he is so good. This guy didn't even play for a whole year and he's a top 5 pick. Like that wasn't even quite like I honestly think the Bengals couldn't have gotten any luckier than what they are right now. Like,
yeah, I mean,
you get
now,
Joe Burrow one year and then Jamar Chase the next year. That is 100% lucky. The fact that
they're lucky sat out.
Yeah, well, exactly. This is all like, this is just 100% luck. Like to get those two back-to-back drafts where like, because basically like, because when it's all said and done, I'm fairly confident that Jamar Chase will be like a top 5 player from this draft. I don't like the 3 quarterbacks or 4 quarterbacks that are going to be drafted in the top 5. Like we pretty much know the majority of those quarterbacks are not going to make it, right? They're not going to live up to their status, right?
Yeah, maybe 1 or 2 out of like the 5 that'll go in the first.
Right. So we basically know like basically the Bengals, Dolphins, Lions, all these teams that are positioned a little bit after, they're the ones that are going to hit because all these teams are overvaluing these quarterbacks. And I think for us, like, it's like, are we going to hit on the tackle, tight end, or receiver? And it, like, to me, the receiver makes the most sense because, like, and they have a connection. And I just know Joe Burrow knows how good Jamar Chase was because, again, when he was 19 and 20, young, he was torching, like, people that were drafted in the first round, cornerbacks in the SEC. Like, he made that guy from Clemson look stupid, and he was drafted in the first round. Like he was a first round talent and he made him look like a scrub.
They definitely have, 4 or 5 options that you can't really go wrong with other than like, Jalen Waddle, there's a risk of injury, I think, but there's no reason that he'll fall like that. The other 3 guys will get picked before him. But I think Jamar Chase definitely is going to be a solid receiver. This is just like watching the draft, over the past few years with the Bengals and like other teams, it's not really a science. It's like there's 1 or 2 guys that are going to be good. And if you're not lucky enough to get one of the top 2 picks, then it's kind of a shot in the dark because like, there's guys that are definitely going to be better than others if everything goes the right way. But then that's the thing. Not everything always goes the right way. Like, there could be a clash between teammates, too many mouths to feed in the receiving core, But, like, there's always a risk involved with drafting high. But I think, like, even if we do go with Penei Sewell, we do have to be careful that we don't end up like the Titans with Isaiah Wilson, where they spent like their first round pick on him, and now he's out of football. He didn't even play last year, so we just have to be careful with developing. Is the thing. I think any of the guys be good on the right team, and any of them could easily play like 2 years and then be done on the wrong team. And, you just have to hope that the Bengals end up being the right team and not the wrong team. Like, like with John Ross, I think we were the wrong team.
Yeah, I don't even know if another team even picked up John Ross. Did they? Was it the Giants?
He's on the Giants
for
like 2.5 mil. So
yeah, no, it's.
I think they got him for a pretty good contract. That's still the wrong team, but I just don't think Daniel Jones is good enough. But it's a whole different thing.
No,
he can't catch either. So.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be hard for the Bengals to miss on this draft. But I feel like if it got to the point where they felt like they had to draft Sewell, they'll probably trade down. Because that would essentially mean that Pitts and Chase are off the board, I would imagine.
Pitts and Chase are off the board. They can trade down. And then even if Sewell goes off the board, there's still Smith and Waddle on the board for them to snatch. I think it's for the Bengals. It's not what you do during the draft; it's what you do with the player after the draft.